His Excellency Carlos Westendorp Cabeza assumed the position, a challenging and interesting position of an ambassador of Spain to the United States on September 15, 2004. Ambassador Westendorp, who joined the Spanish diplomatic service in 1966, previously served as a member of the Autonomous Community of Madrid Parliamentary Assembly, a member of the European Parliament, and High Representative for the implementation of the peace agreement in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In addition, he has served as his country permanent representative to the United Nations, Minister of Foreign Affairs, as well as various posts for the European communities, including State Secretary, permanent representative as well, President Executive of the Board for the Relations with the European Communities, and Secretary General. Ambassador Westendorp has also served as the head commercial office of the Spanish Embassy of The Hague, head of the technical cabinet of the Ministry of Industry, director of economic studies at the Diplomatic School in Madrid, and consul of the Spanish Consul General in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He has authored extensive material, including books, articles, and has given many lectures. Ambassador Westendorp has received decorations in Spain and abroad, included, but not limited, to the Great Cross of the Order of Charles III and the title of Legion of Honor of France. On a personal note, I have been able to be acquainted with the ambassador during these past days, and he's a wonderful individual with a wonderful open mind and is eager to get to know you and get to know the state, and it has been a wonderful experience they having with us. At this time, it is an honor for me to introduce to you this day His Excellency Carlos Westendorp Cabeza, Ambassador of Spain to the United States of America. Ambassador.
Muchas gracias. Estoy tentado de hablar en español, porque he visto que prácticamente todos han estado en España y hablan mi lengua, pero había preparado la charla en inglés y lo voy a hacer en inglés, o en Spanglish, si prefieren. Dear Dean John and my friend John Rosenberg, dear Bernardo, a very good friend and Consul General here in Utah. It is a real privilege for me to have been invited by you to talk in this prestigious university. Well, first of all, because the worldwide reputation of this center in the field of international relations. Second, because it is my first visit to Utah. I have been surprised by the beauty of the country, by the warmth of the people, and by the dynamic energy that this state has in order to become one of the leading states in the Union. And last but not least, because it gives me the opportunity of talking of what is the raison d'etre of my tenure in Washington, that is to say, the relations between Spain and the United States, and also about something which is very important for us, which is the transatlantic relation, the link between both sides of the Atlantic. As a matter of fact, since the early times of the Spanish democracy, both elements, that is to say, integration into the European Union in Europe, and a very sound transatlantic relations were the main two pillars which inspired the Spanish foreign policy. These two pillars provide the framework of developing other priorities of our foreign policy, such as very close relations with Latin America and very close relations with the Middle East and the North of Africa. These two elements, Europe and the United States, were supported, foreign policy, by different governments and by the citizens of our country. And these are not conflicting policies. These are complementary. And this was a matter of multipartisan consensus in Spain. And this partially explains why, when the previous government departed from this consensus by tilting the balance in favor of one of the elements, the United States, against the other element, Europe, the voters turned away from the previous government. When the new government, in compliance with its contract with the great majority of the Spanish people, brought back home the troops from Iraq, there was a logic disappointment in our American friends. For a few months, our bilateral relations passed through the same turbulences as those of our main European partners. Some, mainly the media, expressed their disgust, twisting the reality and presenting the withdrawal as a consequence of the March 11 terrorist attacks, and as a desire of the Spanish people to appease the terrorists. That was not only false, but indeed unfair for a country like Spain, which holds a record in bringing terrorists to justice, and which will not take lessons on showing determination when fighting against terrorism. Not us, not our law enforcement agencies, not the people, and not the victims. But it is also true that during those months, in the aftermath of an electoral campaign in Spain, statements were made and opinions were expressed that were received with dismay in the United States, and also at the peak of another electoral campaign in the presidential election, in which the war in Iraq and the consistency of the international coalition were key issues. And that obviously did not help. One important representative of the US administration told me when I came, half joking, half way warning, that I was going to have to really work to earn my salary. Well, I don't know what I am doing, but they still have me in the payroll. As I want to be sincere with you without ceasing to be a diplomat, let me tell you that no matter what other interested voices may say, the truth is that these incidents belong to the past. Very soon after them, the situation went back to normal, showing that the fundamentals of the close relationship between Spain and the US are as solid as ever. We are allies. We share the same values. We suffer the same threats. Our strategic vision of the world is similar, and we are willing to act together to face the main world challenges. We both pursue the same goals, and though we may sometimes differ in the way to achieve them, we are determined to listen to each other with attention and respect. The streets must not prevent us from seeing the forest. Words must not replace deeds. So let us leave aside past incidents and words and concentrate on the essential, that is to say, on the deeds. As far as Iraq is concerned, Spain, member of the UN Security Council at that time, helped approve Resolution 1546, adopting the roadmap towards democracy. The important financial commitment was confirmed and maintained: $300 million in direct aid, $500 million in debt relief for the reconstruction of the country. The electoral process was supported. Spain was in fact one of the main donors for the election, and its results were welcomed. We are contributing now to train Iraqi judges, police officers, and demining soldiers in our own country. These are facts that eloquently tell of the objectives of Spain and the United States, along with that of the international community, to make of Iraq free, democratic, united country, and one at peace with its neighbors. As Madeleine Albright once told me, it was a war of choice, not of necessity. Getting it right now is a necessity, not a choice. Another example is Afghanistan. where we had the second largest deployment of ISF during the presidential election, and we are now committed to take over a provincial reconstruction team and to supply the crucial elements for the advanced base in Herat. And all that is done, is not done, as some have insinuated, with the intention of compensating for part of past disagreements, but due to our conviction of what is necessary. Spain has not just discovered the need to fight terrorism, or the value of democracy to prevent it, or the international cooperation as the most efficient tool in that combat. We have just now discovered that. Our anti-terrorist bilateral cooperation has not had a single moment of doubt and is stronger than ever. Exchanges between our intelligence services and law enforcement agencies are flowing and frequent. We have signed new extradition and justice cooperation agreements. We have felt the US solidarity when commemorating the first and second anniversary of the terrorist attacks in Madrid. There are other areas of our bilateral cooperation which are worth our attention. One of the domains in which is more intense, this cooperation is more intense, is that of security and defense, as it should be between allies. The unequal relationship established by the 1953 agreements, by which a dictator bought international support in exchange of sovereignty, these agreements were substituted by a more balanced one in 1988, as it is customary between members of NATO, and that still grants the US forces key facilities and logistic support in military operations. As relevant is Spain's contribution to Western security through peacekeeping operations. Up to now, Spain has participated in 60 of them and has sent more than 50,000 troops abroad. They are now in Bosnia, in Afghanistan, in Kosovo. They were recently in Haiti. And all this makes Spain, according to a Pentagon report Congress, the 6th country in supplying naval forces and the 3rd country in infantry. Industrial defense cooperation is a very important chapter, and there is still plenty of room for improvement, such as in the joint construction of frigates and submarines or the investments in the framework of the Atlantic Alliance. Another field is economy. You don't need to be a Marxist to admit that sound and balanced economic relations entail mutual political advantages. Commercial and financial ties are important, but they do not correspond with our respective presences in other areas of the world. Spain exports to the US accounts for only 4% of our total exports. The flow of our investments also goes below our possibilities. We are just the 18th investor in this country. Needless to say that to improve the situation is one of the priorities of my tenure in Washington. I have seen, though, some encouraging signals. I have been recently in Miami and Detroit, in Texas. In Florida alone, there are nearly 400 Spanish companies in very different sectors. Now I need to convince them, when talking about the appropriate economic climate in the US, that there are other places beyond Miami Beach. And for instance, Utah is one of them. Energy-saving industries, construction, infrastructure builders in our country are coming to the United States, investing in this country. They have been investing in Latin America. They are the second, Spain is the second investor, direct investor in Latin America. But Latin America is becoming a less secure country for continent for investment. And the United States is a very secure market. It's a very competitive one. But I am convinced that industries, when they set up here, they can do a lot of business. And I encourage you to be one of these agents for encouraging, increasing business between the two countries. In the field of culture, both countries are deeply interpenetrated. It's penetrated by our respective cultures. Recently, Senator Martinez reminded me the other day that the dynamic Hispanic community is outnumbering the Spanish population in Spain, and it offers a huge potential of understanding and action. Spanish is by far the first language of choice in American schools and universities. And we are trying to help with the presence of more than 1,300 Spanish teachers in various states. There are some of them here in Utah, but they could be more. And I hope that Maribel will help. And I've been telling all the authorities that I have been visiting the need of encouraging Spanish teachers to come and work here. I have also crisscrossed the country inaugurating very important exhibits. Spain in the Age of Exploration in Seattle and Palm Beach, Calden Miro in Washington, Dali in Philadelphia, and many others will follow. We want to open a cultural center in the nation's capital, a Spanish house that will add to the Cervantes that we have in New York, Chicago, and Albuquerque, and the center in Miami. And we are very proud of the job done by centers at the American universities, such as in this prestigious chair. Spain's international priorities are also relevant for the interest of the U.S. world policy, and Europe is the first of them. The Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, and President Bush have successfully traveled to Europe and promised to work so that we can put behind our differences. Both sides of the Atlantic know that the peace, security, and prosperity of the world cannot afford them. Spain wants, as President Bush has said himself, a strong Europe. The Europe for which the Spaniards voted last year when we approved the Constitution. Just as in 1995, the socialist government to which I was a part achieved, when holding the presidency of the European Union, the approval of the transatlantic agenda. Spain believes that a strong Europe needs a close and balanced relationship with the United States. I was privileged to witness, as High Representative of the international community in Bosnia-Herzegovina, what the United States and Europe can achieve when they work together. We share with the United States the desire of seeing Latin America follow the path towards political stability, strengthened democracy, and social and economic development. And we are not talking about just our cultural and historic ties, but of the fact of Spain being, as I told you, the first in Europe and second in the world investor in the area. The U.S. can rely on Spain as a strategic partner in the region. And we are also sharing the basic goals of securing peace, spreading democracy, and improving the economy of the broader Middle East. 10 years ago, Spain launched the Barcelona process. Recently, the United States have put forward the broader Middle East and North African initiative. And Spain, together with Turkey, a couple of months ago, presented the Alliance of Civilizations initiative at the United Nations General Assembly, and the Secretary General has adopted it as his own. This initiative is of particular interest to Europe and the US in a twofold manner. First, allowing us to learn how to develop our relations with third countries in an environment of tolerance toward cultural differences. And last but not least, this policy of mutual understanding is also important within our own societies. Recent events in France, for instance, have made clear the existence of a dangerous potential for conflict. The eyes of the world were looking at Majorca, and they are looking at Turkey, when the group of wise persons created by the initiative will meet and present some conclusions to achieve this goal of an alliance and not a conflict between civilizations. Dear students, I am definitely very optimistic about the promising future of our bilateral cooperation, and I am sure that gestures will soon be accompanying the real substance of our relations. This is the interest of both countries. This is the purpose of the government of Spain. This is the objective of the mission in Washington, and of course the daily task of this ambassador, and also the task of you, which are informal ambassadors, as John Roosevelt said, which is much more important than the formal ones. Thank you very much.
After a drink of water, the ambassador is willing to entertain questions that I'm sure you'll want to ask.
To your help. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
One item of Spanish-American United States relations that's caught some attention in the news recently is this deal to supply Venezuela with some military vehicles, I think some spy planes and patrol boats. And that's caused some concern, obviously, on our part because we are uneasy with the Chavez regime. And I was wondering, is Spain's interest in working with Hugo Chavez primarily economical because they want this deal, or is it also that you sympathize with that regime and are supporting their influence in the region?
It's a good question. Thank you. Thank you for putting it. As a matter of fact, the Spanish government, as many other governments, have signed contracts with the Venezuelan government to provide them with some aircraft, transportation aircraft, unarmed, and some patrol boats to control the coast. This is a quite normal operation. We try to explain to our American friends, but unfortunately, this is one of the elements in which we share the main objective, which is that we want a democratic Venezuela. But we disagree on the way to approach the problem. Spain is a part of the Latin American family. We are not a superpower, so we cannot afford to have bad relations with the different members of the family. Our foreign policy in Latin America is the Latin American policy itself. That is to say, the recognition of any democratic government which has been democratically elected. Now, it doesn't mean that we like the situation in Venezuela. We rather prefer that the situation becomes a more stable one, that there is not a trend against real democracy, a trend towards authoritarianism, a trend against freedom of expression. But we think that the best way to do that is not by isolating or by not talking to the present Venezuelan government, but on the contrary, to establish links and together with other friends in Latin American continent, together with Argentina, together with Brazil, we can influence this government to go in the right direction. Yes.
How do you view the increase of immigration from Spanish-American countries in Spain?
I think this is an issue which the views of the U.S. and Spain are very similar, because the problem is very similar. You have a difference of income between the United States North and the South, like around 10 times the North richer than the South. And Spain has also a difference of income with the North of Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, even greater, perhaps 15 to 1. Whenever you have this income differential, it is inevitable to suffer an influx of immigration, a pressure for immigration, people who want to live better, to have a better life. On the other hand, we have also a similar problem because we have our Rio Grande in the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Sea in the Strait of Gibraltar. Many people are coming from the north of Africa in boats created by mafias who charge the poor people 6,000 or even more dollars for a trip, which is very uncertain because many of them unfortunately die before coming to our coasts. And we have a similar situation in the United States because we need immigrants. We need immigrants because Spanish people, the same as American people, are not willing to do the jobs that immigrants are ready to do. And we have a very sophisticated, in Spain, social security system, a health system, a pension system, and the immigrants are contributing to do this. Solutions, also very similar, I hope, although there is not yet a definitive solution in the United States. The solution would be, I think, more or less on the lines that the present Spanish government has put on the table, that is to say, last year, a law which grants residence to those who have been working in Spain, immigrants, illegal immigrants, illegally, without documents, to grant them residence and documents to those who have been working in Spain for more than 2 years. This is the situation in Spain. Almost 1 million people have come legal residents. And at the same time, we have also to manage the pressure, the immigration pressure, and to control our borders with the help of the European Union, of course. We have also very long borders. And at the same time, signing agreements with Morocco, with Mauritania, and sub-Saharan Africa countries in order to take back those illegal immigrants who come to Spain but who has not been granted a working permit or a visa in our country. Because the problem is that this, so far, we cannot send back immigrants if they do not have any documents, and usually they destroy them when they come to Spain, so we don't know where they come from. And now Morocco and Mauritania and others have taken the responsibility of receiving back these immigrants, illegal immigrants. So the situation of the immigration situation in both countries is very similar. It is so similar that we have to learn from each other. Now there will be a visit of the Secretary for Immigration Affairs of the United States to Spain, and this dialogue will go on and on because we have a common problem and a common opportunity at the same time. Yes.
What is the government of Spain's stance on the situation in Iran, especially in light of the announcement that they've now been successful in enriching low-grade uranium?
As you know, this is a case where identity of views between the European Union and the US exist, so there are no differences. 4 European countries have been negotiated on behalf of the international community with Iran, unfortunately unsuccessfully, and we are looking with a lot of apprehension the announcement of Iran's authorities to enrich uranium, not because they have not the right to do so for peaceful purposes, for atomic energy, because in our countries we are also using it, but because there is not trust that these technological improvements are not going to be used to produce a weapon. And this, of course, will upset the whole balance in the region. So we are as worried at the US and as resolved as the US to help to solve the situation, which is not an easy issue. A lady, you just, I think you are so kind to allow her to talk first. And then
You've spoken of a stronger European region. How do the increasingly falling birth rates and an increasingly aging population within the Union affect that view of security and stability, especially with regard
I told you that immigration is helping us to solve that problem. Spain is perhaps the lowest, has the lowest birth rate in the world, together with Japan and Italy, but it's one of the lowest. The immigrants in Spain, which are around 5 million, 4 million, 5 million, are contributing to our social security schemes, and also to our defense, to our own defense, because many soldiers in our army are immigrants, are coming from foreign countries, mainly from Latin America. The same as here in the United States. So we are not worried about this because we have this opportunity. We are trying to encourage our countrymen and countrywomen to increase the birth rate without much success. I have done my quota already.
Now that, I guess, 4 years after the introduction of the euro, how is Spain's economy doing with that? Is it is it, I know at first there was a little difficulty with the transition, but all in all, is the population been able to adjust? Are they in a better situation, about the same, or?
Well, the euro for Spain was a very important step. We had a weak economy, and of course, when you have a weak economy, you have a weak currency, the peseta. When we joined the euro, we were totally defended from fluctuations in the monetary market in the world. It's a stable currency. It is able to resist any speculative movement. And thanks to the euro discipline, not to the currency itself, but the discipline of belonging to the monetary union, Spain has no deficit at all. We have zero deficit. And thanks to this and to an open economy attitude, Spain has been growing during 12 years at a rate of 3.5% every year, which for European standards is very high. It's double the rate of the average of the European Union. When we joined the European Union and we joined the euro, we were 80%, 75 when you joined, 80% later of the average of the income of the European Union. Only Portugal and Greece were behind us. Now we are in the average of the European Union, and we are the fastest growing country in Europe, together with Ireland, after Ireland. To an extent that Ireland, as you know, is called the Celtic tiger, and Spain is called the Iberian tiger. Yes.
Recently I spoke to one of my Spanish friends in Madrid, and he told me that the missionaries were having some trouble renewing their visas or obtaining visas, especially the American missionaries. I was just wondering what is being done to kind of solve that miscommunication.
I'm not aware of these particular difficulties of missionaries. I know about difficulties in general because the world is becoming a more complicated place to live, and due to this flow of immigration and due to the need to control possible infiltrations of terrorists, all countries are much more exigent on visa requirements, but not in particular to the missionaries. If you have any particular problem, please let me know. Here you have a consul which is very active. Utah belongs to the constituency, the area of Los Angeles Consul General, and we are trying to solve these problems. We are aware that some students have problems not to obtain the visa at all, but to obtain it on time. And I will advise you to apply for a visa as soon as you know you are going to Spain, because it takes time. It takes more than a month.
¿Qué soluciones está buscando el gobierno español en términos de empleo, de equilibrio en empleos, salarios para los jóvenes, y que ellos puedan alcanzar el poder el poder comprar una vivienda, porque el precio de la vivienda es un problema muy grande hoy en día, puesto que el costo es muy alto y es escandaloso y no asequible al bolsillo y al salario de cualquier español hoy en día.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. This young lady is asking me what the Spanish government is doing to improve the situation of young people, and especially the access to an apartment, to a house at a reasonable price, because the price of lodging in Spain is very, very high. And well, as a matter of fact, this is one of our main worries. Of course, the how to foster employment, it's throughout a sound economic situation. Spain is the present government has reduced the unemployment rate to a more acceptable percentage. It's around 8-9% unemployment, which is still high, but it's much lower than the 22% that there was in Spain 10 years ago. So this is one of the elements. As far as the lodging problem is concerned, Spain is has one of the highest ownership rates of lodges in Europe. As you know, in the rest of Europe, there is a program of houses for rent protected by the state, either by the central state or by the municipalities. In Spain, everybody wants to buy a house, and also the young people. And to buy a house in Spain is almost impossible because the prices of the housing in Spain. There is a new Ministry of Lodging in Spain, which is launching a lot of putting in the market flats of very small, very little, very small size, which is not enough, of course, but it's helping a little bit to alleviate the situation. But this is one of the main problems. The main problems is how to grant access to a dignified lodging. I think, in my opinion, we should increase the number of houses for renting, because in Spain there is no culture of renting a house, because people believe that when you rent a house you are throwing your money away. Which in fact it is true, but it is not true in economic terms, because perhaps if you are able to take more income from the use of your money, perhaps than the price of the lodging, the rent of the lodging, which is very low, by the way. Renting in an apartment in Spain is very high, but it's very low in comparison with the price of the apartment. It is about 2% of the capital invested in the property, in the ownership, and the market is giving 3%, 3.5%. So I would think that renting, increasing the number of apartments for rent, will alleviate the situation. But I agree with you. This is one of the main problems.
One more question.
One more, and there are 3 arms up.
Do you want me to choose so they won't be mad at you?
Yes, you take the blame for that.
Let's go right to the middle here.
How do you view the separatism of Catalonia and Vizcaya, and why do you think that ETA stopped their attacks?
How do I see separatism? Very badly. I mean, I don't like it at all. Imagine. But as long as it is in a democratic way that they are fighting for that, we have to admit it. It would be the people, the whole population, who will decide. What it was unacceptable, totally unacceptable, immoral, was the way in which this a part of this separatism was carrying out their demands by violence. And the announcement of a truce by ETA is a very good news. It's a permanent truce. We have to wait. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It's not going to be an easy path, unfortunately. And we are not yet sure of the intentions of ETA. We are not sure that they are really ready and capable of keeping their word of a truce. But in any case, it has opened a window of hope in this very long-standing tragedy that Spain has been suffered. And we are quite optimistic. But let's see. We have to be very prudent. The law enforcement agencies are still working, so in prevention of possible deviations from their work. Thank you very much.